What's up guys, this is Tyler from Mechaniholics, and today I'm going to show you how to rebuild the carburetor on this 2004 YZ250F. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that your petcock is in the off position, and then you're going to want to remove the gas line that runs to the carburetor. And make sure you have something ready to catch whatever leftover gas is in the line. Now you're going to want to seat your fuel mixture screw. If your screw doesn't have any marks on it already, you're going to want to make some so you have some way to count how many turns you're going in with it. Be careful when you're seating it because it's very easy to snap, and you just have to be gentle with it. I was about 2 1/4 turns out, so I'm gonna write that down so when I go to reset my carburetor after the rebuild, I'll have somewhere to start from. To remove your throttle cables, you're gonna wanna break these 2 cables loose and remove this cover. I already broke everything loose for the purposes of the video. Then you're going to want to pop the cover off. You're going to want to get them loose enough to the point where you can pop it out. Like that. Also, this is your open cable and this is your closed cable. So if you open your throttle a little bit, it'll help you out. Then you can get that off. And then just unscrew it the rest of the way and pull it out. Now while we're over here, we should also loosen up where the carburetor connects to the engine. To get the carburetor off the intake, there's another band clamp with a Phillips head on this side of the carburetor. Now the subframe and air box are going to have to be removed. Now you should just be able to pop the carburetor off. You're going to have to break loose your hot start. And you should be able to get it by hand. And just pop that out. Let's start off by just spraying the outside with a little bit of carb cleaner. I want to start with removing the valve lever housing cover. It actually wasn't as dirty as I thought it was going to be. But we're still going to clean that down. Now we're going to remove the throttle shaft screw. Once that is done, you can lift up this control arm and remove the carburetor slide. Be sure that this comes out with it because it can sometimes stick in there. Now we're going to go to the bottom of the carburetor, and we're going to start by backing out your fuel mixture screw. If yours is the original one, you're going to need a flathead screwdriver. Now I'm going to pull off the accelerator pump. And its diaphragm. Two spots you really don't want to get your carburetor cleaner on are the diaphragm, because it's rubber and the carb cleaner will eat up the rubber, and the same with your throttle plate because there's an O-ring around here. If you do get carburetor cleaner on it, it's a good chance that you'll distort it and ruin them. Now we're going to remove the float bulb plug. And the float bolt. Here now you can see the pilot jet and the main jet. Hopefully you guys are fortunate enough that you didn't have someone messing around in your carburetor. But I wasn't so lucky. I wound up having nearly every single screw stripped, and one of them I wound up having to cut a slice into it so I'd be able to use a flathead screwdriver. Now you're going to want to push out your float pin. Pull out your float assembly. Now we're going to pull out the main jet, which is a 6mm. Now if the needle jet doesn't come out with the main jet. You want to use a 10mm to get that out. You want to take the plastic spacer off. Now you can remove the pilot jet. And the starter jet. Now that you have the carburetor disassembled, you can go through and clean the body itself. You're going to want to make sure you spray in every single crevice, especially where all your jets are, and make sure that the fluid comes out or somewhere when you spray it in somewhere. Now you can take off your choke assembly. Spray all that down with carb cleaner. And then you can reinstall that. Now just spray down your slide assembly. Now we're going to spray out the float bowl. And remove the leak jet. Now that you have everything all cleaned up, you can go ahead and install your starter jet and your pilot jet. You just seat them in with a flathead screwdriver. Now you should check your owner's manual, but for this bike there's no torque spec for the jets. Now you can put plastic spacer back in place. Now you're going to want to put in your needle jet. And your main jet. Now you can put the float needle back onto the float and put the float back into place. Now you can put the float bowl back onto the carburetor. Now set the diaphragm in place. Along with the spring. Install your slide valve. You're going to want to make sure you get the rollers to catch in between like that. Now you're going to want to use some Loctite on this screw. Now you can reinstall the throttle valve cover. Here's your screw. You're going to want to make sure that you seat this thing all the way and then put it back out to the spec you wrote down earlier, so you have somewhere to work from. Now you're just going to want to put everything back together the way you took it apart. Now that your carburetor is all set up and ready for its first fire, you're going to want to adjust your fuel screw to make sure you have the right mixture. As a baseline, you're going to want to start out on the adjustment that you recorded before you disassembled it. If your bike starts popping, you're running a little bit lean, and if it starts bogging, you're running rich. So you're just going to want to mess around with it until you get it right. Now that you got a freshly rebuilt carburetor and your bike's running like brand new, it's time to check for some gas leaks and take it for a rip.